Well, Palantir has been on just an epic run up, and man, with everybody piling in, with Palantir basically just making new all-time high on top of new all-time high every single day, every single week, the question becomes, are you missing the rocket ship and it's just going to keep going up forever? Or are you feeling FOMO? And of course, Wall Street has an opinion about all that. So let's discuss exactly what's going on with that. But more importantly, I want to see exactly what Wall Street's saying so that way we can kind of discuss where they're right, where they're wrong, more importantly, and of course, get down to the truth about Palantir. Just make sure you like the video if you like getting the truth without the hype, because that's exactly what you're going to get today. All right, so, it's Wall Street, guys. We got to kind of deal with it here. And I know a lot of you guys hear a lot of this noise, and some of this will sound familiar. Some of it's not going to sound familiar at all. That's okay. We'll cut through the noise, get you guys the truth. Wait, what's going on? Oh. The retirement savings crisis. Why more Americans can't afford to stop working.
The retirement savings cliff. The number of Americans in the labor market over the age of 75 is expected to nearly double over the next decade. Democrats and Republicans finally agree on something. America faces a retirement crisis. Why you will never retire.
That's weird that keeps happening. I have no idea what's going on. Anyways, let's jump into the video.
So joining us now to discuss more on Palantir and what has been a pretty phenomenal run really since their earnings is Dan King Hall, senior markets correspondent for the network. So Dan, finally we get to talk some optimism. I feel like we've talked right across the board on our show today, but Palantir is firmly in green today.
I know that stock is certainly swinging higher today. And here's some of the news that's happening around it. Although, obviously, this doesn't necessarily have to do with fundamentals, but Palantir will be decamping from here, the New York Stock Exchange, the big board, and moving over to trade at NASDAQ, okay? The date when that will officially occur is November 26th. Now, Palantir has said that when it makes this move, it will meet the metrics to be included in the NASDAQ 100. So you are seeing shares jump by more than 8% today. And Palantir, not just off the back of its latest earnings, it has...
Now, keep in mind that the jump over to the NASDAQ means nothing. And they kind of talked about that. Fundamentally, it means nothing to the valuation or anything else. It's nice. It may bring in, obviously, more institutional ownership, which just means not a higher stock price. Over the long run, it adds nothing to revenue, adds nothing to EPS, adds nothing to the valuation itself. However, what it does do is it helps to continue to stabilize the stock and give you long-term investors that are going to hold the stock versus it being squarely in the trader's hands. That was one of the frustrations with Palantir was it would run up and then crash right back down. It'd run up to, 10, 12, 13, $14 and crash right back down to 7, then back up to 10 and then back down to 6. And it just kind of went back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. That's because it was trader controlled. As it starts to hit all these metrics and becomes larger and larger, obviously producing on the bottom line, then they start getting added to these various indexes. And then, of course, the index funds and institutional holders and a lot of other folks like that then start buying the stock as well. So you see institutional ownership going up, which typically stabilizes the stock overall. Obviously, it's not perfect. It's not exact, not an exact science, but it definitely overall takes those shares out of those traders' hands and moves it more over here into those long-term buy investors' hands. So that right there is the big thing right there. Now, of course, traders are going to trade the news per se, whatever you want to call it. I would agree there. But somebody is trying to argue that somehow this fundamentally changes Palantir and gives it a extra, 500 billion to the market cap or whatever, the same exact thing whenever they were talking about S&P inclusion and all that sort of stuff. It doesn't. It just doesn't do that, guys. So make sure you kind of get that out of your head as you're kind of thinking about Palantir and what this actually means. It just means traders are going to trade it. In the end, it's just another good sign that helps stabilize the stock more over the long run, which I think is kind of the play there. Obviously, I know one of the board members tweeted out something crazy. I don't know. And then it made him sound very uneducated. Then he deleted his X account, Twitter account. I think it was on that. Maybe it was on Instagram. I don't remember which one. Anyways, whatever account they were on. Point being, they posted it and then quickly deleted it as well. Kind of funny there. Yeah, there could be some trouble coming for that individual there. You just can't do that as a board member. Anyways, it made him sound silly anyway. So it's kind of like, I don't know if I want that guy on my board if he doesn't understand basic fundamentals of investing. But nonetheless, it has nothing to do with the day-to-day operation. So any bear trying to make an argument that, oh, look, that board's clueless, they don't know, whatever, they're not running the company. Alex is. and he's firmly in control of what's going on there. So I'm excited overall. But anyways, that's how that works out.
This entire year, the stock has been up majorly. It just really fits into kind of what this segment is, FOMO. Now, to be fair, we just heard Dan Ives talking about Palantir, and yes, it has had growth, but there are some analysts that point to some of the fundamentals, and does the valuation, is it justified with how far it's run this year? Because you've seen shares practically triple this year in terms of where they started the year.
All right, so we'll talk about valuation at the end here, but in regards to the fact that the stock's up, 300% from the beginning of the year, whatever the case is, we talk about all the time. That doesn't freaking matter. You can have a triple up in your stock and still be undervalued. And same exact thing, you can have a stock trade flat or go down 50% and still be overvalued. We all experienced that in 2022. It happens both ways. So never, in talking about valuation, never go off of, well, how much is it up this year? Means zero to valuation. Absolutely zero. That's what had people selling out of Palantir earlier on, whenever it went from, $7 to $14 very quickly. And people were selling out because, oh my gosh, it's doubled up. It can't keep going. Well, yeah, here we are less than a year later, all the way up over $60 now. So when you hear those type things, that's just, I don't know, media talk, narrative talk, Wall Street talk, reason to get out of the trade and take your profits. Not a reason as a long-term buy and hold investor to base valuation on at all. So make sure you don't make that mistake. I never look at it when I'm doing a valuation. I never look at, well, how much is it up this year? Is it up or is it down? None of that. Both sides. I don't care. I'm looking strictly at valuation, and am I getting a discount based upon valuation? That's it. Up or down, and percentages up and down mean absolutely zero in regards to valuation. You're going to get yourself burned if you start thinking that way.
Now, in terms of what has happened in its most recent quarter, you saw, a big part of Palantir's business has been the defense sector. You saw growth there. You saw 33% growth on a year-over-year basis. That was up from the prior quarter where you saw 24% growth. The other segment where you saw growth was commercial. They've been expanding more in there. Now, commercial on a percent basis grew even more. So that is looked to as, kind of the future of Palantir, where you saw growth of more than 50% when it comes to Palantir. So again, it doesn't, this move being moved over to the NASDAQ doesn't necessarily change anything, but they have this strong retail shareholder base that has really been, kind of holding this company up, guys.
Yeah, this one's got the momentum at its back, it seems, in terms of the run that we're seeing in Palantir. Analysts aren't fully on board with it yet. I think it's one of those stories where many think maybe a little bit too far, too fast. You can make the technical argument of kind of breaking out of like a several year kind of, sideways pattern here. I don't know. I mean, you look at the valuation, value investors aren't going to want this one with like 170 forward PE. But then you look at the area it works in, Diane, you can see the excitement. This is like one of the first companies that's really in this AI machine learning world that's like turning dollars from it. So it's not just coming up with models, it's actually selling its software and has partnerships with the government and private companies. So I could easily make the argument for why this stock could go significantly lower or higher.
Well, he was actually made a lot of good points in there. That is the difficult part with any growth stock that you have, is whenever you're seeing this sort of acceleration and growth, you're seeing this sort of underlying fundamentals supporting or growing at, increasing rates. Now, obviously, we're just a few quarters in here of seeing that growth rate increase the other way. However, it's accelerating, not going the opposite direction there. That right there is where it gets exciting. Now, as an investor, as a prudent investor, what you can't do is you can't start speculating and going, oh, well, they grew, 53% this quarter, so next quarter is going to be 63%. And then if I extrapolate that out every quarter, I add 10% to it. That's how people get themselves in trouble as investors, and they end up with these utterly ridiculous price targets. Well, yeah, I think it's realistic that Palantir could be at, $300 at the end of next year. So you better be piling in. It's not the case at all. It's not how valuation works. More importantly, that's not how company growth works. If they happen to execute to that, awesome. I'm still not sure I could justify that sort of price at the end of next year in regards to that. So it actually made some decent points in there. Obviously, it's very, very exciting to see where they can take this. That's kind of the exciting part. But it doesn't mean that I need to FOMO into the stock right now today, because it's just going to take off and it's going to be this train, this rocket ship that you'll never catch back up to. It's just not, it's simply not true. That is simply FOMO talking at that stage.
Well, it's so funny to your point. So, more analysts than not are in the hold camp with regard to this. And I think it's exactly what you say. You know, for instance, the most recent analysis that I saw was out from Argus Research. And they were, they were on their short view, they had downgraded it to a hold. But their long term view was that they see, and this is over a 5-year out view, was as a buy. But in terms of them reducing it to a hold, they said, look, they did have a stellar third quarter, right? They talked about both the increasing revenue, accelerating revenue, expanding margin, whether we're talking about defense or its expansion in the commercial business. But again, they talked about, just where we've seen in terms of share price. They've tripled in value this year, roughly, and they may be getting ahead of what the company fundamentals can support, is how Argus views this. So they've reduced this as a hold. You had GS come out, Goldman recently, just maintaining their neutral rating on it. So in terms of the street diverges from how investors view this one, Alex.
Remember, these guys are all about the trade, the momentum, and whatever the heck their bosses are doing, and what all's going on in the background of the firm. That's what they're going to speak to. So it might give you some indication of where the momentum is, might give you some indication of what maybe Wall Street firms are positioning themselves for. But they wanted nothing to do with the stock, and it was definitely a sell whenever it was at 7, 8, $10, whatever the case was. That's the difference between Wall Street and us and long-term buy and hold investors in general. I'm strictly looking at valuation. Is the company executing? And do I like the price based upon that valuation? That's it. I could care less where the momentum is. I could care less where anything else is happening. I don't have bosses over me telling me what to do, what to write, and stuff like that. So I feel no need to do that sort of thing. It doesn't mean that I don't necessarily agree with their stance on it, but I have put virtually zero weight into it because I don't know, when at this stage did they have it as a buy? It seemed like it wasn't a buy whenever it was cheap. And then whenever it started running, then it was a buy. Now it's run way up and now it's a hold again. I don't know, guys. It's just momentum chasing. It's kind of, oh, hey, stock's on a run. I'm gonna say buy it too. So then I can be right. It's kind of what it feels like to me. So again, silliness from Wall Street. I'm going to just ignore that and we'll kind of move on.
Yeah, and I will say, I know that this is one that has like almost a cult following, I think, because at one point we saw a almost meme stock type interest in Palantir, but I will say they've done a great job shedding that image. I mean, they have profitability consistently. They have, like Alex, these government contracts. I think I can understand the argument for valuation, but
that's why I hate whenever people try to categorize this as a meme stock like GameStop and some of the others. There is a difference between a company that has a nice retail following, just simply because people are talking about on YouTube, means nothing, by the way. It means zero. That means that type video is getting clicks, is what that means. It has nothing to do with, is it a meme style rally? Now, the meme style rallies is when significant numbers of retail folks are pouring money into a particular stock to create short squeezes and create all these other things to happen so you can get rich quick, which none of them worked in the end. Obviously, short term, the very first time it went, caught people off guard, but the ultimate squeeze didn't happen. I'm sorry. Don't think it's happening. And I don't think Palantir has ever fallen into that. I believe the people that have followed the company, understand the company, have been maybe more vocal out there. Maybe they're more vocal, obviously, on YouTube, because I do know, hey, you post a Palantir video, you're going to get a lot of clicks on it. Regardless of what you say, it's going to get a lot of clicks. It draws a lot of retail interest. So whenever you talk about meme stocks, I mean, take a look at AMC's financials and then take a look at Palantir's, and you tell me which one is better. You tell me who's spinning off more cash flow, who is going up quarter in and quarter out. You tell me all those sort of things and then tell me how they compare. One company is performing, the other company just seems to randomly trade up because a whole bunch of people get on a chat room and decide we're going to try to pump this thing up. That's completely different styles of investing there. I think that's why Palantir has easily been able to shed that image on Wall Street, because one, we never got a crazy run out of it like you did get out of those other stocks. And two, there's fundamentals underneath supporting parts of this run as we go. So obviously we'll talk about valuation here at the end, but there's fundamentals underneath this company. You don't see dying fundamentals. You see growing fundamentals the right direction. So a massive distinction there in regards to these stocks.
This point, price is king, and it's been a definite winner on the year and a winner on this week, and thankfully today, because I can't talk about stocks that are down all day long. But appreciate it as always, Diane King Hall. Have a wonderful weekend. Thank you for joining us all week long. So now, Alex, when we trade this name, we're up, significantly here on the session. I know we've pulled back from the be the all-time high, session highs by about 1.7%. But all things considered, I mean, we're looking at a name where we're basically at highs.
Yeah, and this is like a real candidate for FOMO, right? Like there's momentum behind it. It does some, pretty cool things in terms of what it actually is working on. Definitely kind of a futuristic type company. Like you said, there's been a lot of, kind of next generation investors that have been, calling for the outperformance of a name like Palantir for years now. They're starting to see that come to fruition here from a technical standpoint, certainly has strength. And so I looked at a kind of momentum like strategy, Jenny.
All right, so I'm gonna stop the video right there. So let's get down to valuation and all that good stuff like that. Now, for some reason, there's some folks out there in the comment section who think because I say, hey, be prudent with your buying, or I call a stock overvalued, somehow I'm a bear. I don't know. For some reason, if I'm not saying go all in all the time, and instead I say, hey, be prudent, hey, buy Palantir whenever it makes sense. Don't just FOMO in to FOMO in and a lot of other things like that. Somehow I'm being a bear. Somehow, if I don't just say Palantir is worth $500, I'm a bear. It makes absolutely no sense at all. Or somehow I was wrong, just simply because the stock runs up. I don't know. These things don't make any sense. Just simply because a stock is overvalued doesn't mean it can't run more. Just simply because a stock overvalued doesn't mean don't buy, which I never say things like that. I never say don't buy a stock. Hey, if you're DCAing, continue your DCA. If you're doing a modified DCA, continue your modified DCA. Whatever your strategy is, continue to execute your strategy. Just simply because Luke thinks it's a little bit overvalued or a lot overvalued should mean zero to what you're doing there. I'm just simply showing you guys why in my situation, with my plan, with my valuation, with the number of shares that I have and the number, again, I have a full position plus bonus shares. I have all of that already, and I have a lot of bonus shares because we got a lot of opportunities. So yeah, I have no interest in buying Palantir at 60 bucks, but just, 2-3 months ago, I had a lot of interest in buying it at $20. And that right there is the difference in regards to this. So I don't know how you can be a bear saying buy the stock here, and then the moment you do a valuation and you realize, hey, it's overvalued, all of a sudden you're, the worst person ever and you're wrong and all this other sort of stuff like that. So I don't want you guys to fall into those sorts of traps with people that say that. So anyways, yes, right now, Palantir, no matter what metric you put towards it, is overvalued. I'm sorry, that's the absolute truth with the stock. Now, that doesn't mean sell it and run. Absolutely not. You guys know I don't believe in that game. We are not in a Tesla 2021 type situation where it made sense to sell back then at that stage. We're not in that situation at all. I see big growth coming next year. Again, I got to wait until they actually give us next year's guidance. It may disappoint. And at that stage, we're definitely going to see a massive correction down from where we're at right now. But I think it's going to be good. Therefore, that gets me excited. That doesn't mean it's not still overvalued. I just can't, until I get those numbers, I can't give you a definitive answer on that. I can only tell you today, based upon the numbers today and based upon a reasonable projection for the rest of the year that they told us on the earnings. And of course, just looking out next year using very similar numbers, it's overvalued right now. Now, if you're DCAing, keep buying, keep doing your DCA. If you're in another situation where you're thinking about taking profits or whatever the case is, good luck. I don't advocate doing that ever, because the right time to take profits was at like 25 bucks. That's what all the charts and all the graphs and even valuation at the time said. Hey, then maybe it was 35 bucks. I remember people commenting all the time, ha, 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 you're telling people not to sell. And, it's I took my profits at 35. I'll see you at 25. Well, now we're at 65 or close to 65. Like, it's ridiculous at that stage. The right call, if you were going to trade, was to trade it at 25, at 35, at 45, at 55. And here we are above all of those marks. That's why I don't trade, because it's impossible to do. Because now all those folks that did that are stuck buying. If you got out at 35, heck, you probably bought at 45, 50 because you had to feel a FOMO at that stage. You want to own the stock, and you're like, oh my gosh, my biggest mistake. I started seeing that in the comments as well. A lot of folks saying, hey, huge regret. I sold. Shouldn't have sold. Should have just held. I understand that. That's exactly why you use valuation, but I don't use valuation to decide whether I should sell or not, because there's no need to take profits on a great company. I think Palantir, now, if you believe Palantir has pulled forward 5 years worth of growth, or it's just not going to ever be worth this, makes perfect sense to me. Totally understand that. That right there is following your plan, following your valuation, and moving on. You made a great trade. Hey, move on with life. But for me, I believe Palantir is going to be much larger 5 years from now than it is today. And so for me, I'm not in Palantir to just get to 60 bucks. I'm in it to get a lot higher than that. And so for me, it makes absolutely no sense to get out of the stock, because now I've got to try to figure when to get in, when to get out. And again, statistically, dead people beat traders. So I don't want to play that game at all. Trading rich? Absolutely. Guess what I'm doing? I'm focusing on other stocks and other creating more money loops for myself, doing all sorts of other things like that, growing my businesses, instead of trying to figure out when to get in and then when to get out and looking at, I don't know, all the other ridiculous things that are out there. Most folks have lost trading the stock despite the epic run it's had this year. Think about that. If we're up almost 300% or over 300% for the year, that means most of those traders have lost on a stock that is up 300%. That makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. I'm sure you can find somebody out there who's gotten in and out at the right times, but the vast majority of folks that have tried to time this stock for the past year and a half have gotten destroyed over and over and over again, or maybe they've made some money, but they're not up 300%, 400%, 500% on the stock like a lot of us are over the past year and a half. So ignore that sort of garbage. Stay away from it. Just stick to your plan. Understand that, yes, we are trading rich right now, but we are not crazy overvalued or anything like that. And remember, if you need help with valuations, you need help with understanding the fundamentals of investing, you want to see my complete watch list with price targets, you want to take 5 courses for free, get your free coaching. I may have left something special down there in the pinned comment for you guys that have stuck this far in the video. So make sure you check it out and see if a membership's right for you. And click this video here if you want to see exactly what I'm buying in this market. And click here to see my exact plan for this market. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.